What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about The Last of Us multiplayer. It's been a little while since the Jason Schreier report, and I've just had things kind of bottled up inside me. Had a couple different ideas for topics that I wanted to make of the game, so I thought, well, let's just do it all kind of in one, just kind of get it all out there. Will the game release? Will it get canceled? When would it release? Do we trust the reporting? That's maybe where I want to start, because ever since that, Jason Schreier report, we did actually get people that kind of indicated maybe look at it with a grain of salt. Now, I've talked about in the past that generally I respect Schreier's reports, and by respect, I simply mean I guess I trust them. I trust that what he's saying is true. However, over the last little while, there's been a few different examples, one of which being even the Knights of the Old Republic thing, where I actually trust other people over him that have kind of said that, yeah, he clickbaits, he makes things up and inserts it in to kind of blow up the issue. Obviously, a lot of journalists write with a slant, so there's clearly something he's trying to accomplish by telling the story. I've never liked him as an individual, in terms of a person, but I've always trusted what he's had to say, but that trust has been shaken as of late. Now, what does that mean? Well, I still think that there are problems with The Last of Us. I do trust the idea that Bungie has kind of been given the keys, to the kingdom here, and is able to kind of evaluate these different live service games that Sony is doing. But maybe the idea that certain things are kind of falling apart around them, maybe that part is overblown. I don't know. The thing is, this kind of moves into part two. I think we need to see something. I think we need to hear something. Now, we did, right? We saw the report or update thing from Naughty Dog, which I think was the same day, right? To try to get ahead of it, or try to take out Schreier's reporting and say, hey, we want to give an update. I am in the camp of giving studios as much time as they need and getting the game to the best ability that studio can do. Let's get the best game possible, right? That kind of mentality. But I think with just how this has gone, and what are they working on, right? See, these are things I don't even know, how do you title these in videos? How do I actually talk about it? It's got to be in videos like this. What is this game? To say easy is definitely a tough thing to say, and I don't really like to say it, right? Because obviously I'm not there. I'm not coding it. I'm not creating these things, so I don't want to make it sound like these things are easy. But you think to factions, and you think they did a really good job. And not that it was a throw-in, but you could really look to the early days of Uncharted multiplayer and then Last of Us multiplayer as these are not the experiences that you buy the game for, right? The multiplayer portion. So, throwing it in there, I mean it in that way. They were incredible products, but I feel like they would have been afterthoughts, right? You have to make the base game. You have to have Uncharted 2 be Uncharted 2. You have to have The Last of Us be The Last of Us. The multiplayer doesn't matter, at least initially. So, for this game, okay, well, it's super ambiguous, and you imagine it's some sort of live service-y thing. They had that person who kind of watched over Fortnite. They came, I think that person may have left, though. I'm not 100% sure. You got all this stuff kind of going around. You got Neil Druckmann talking about a story that the multiplayer. Now, Factions 1 had a story-like element, but it certainly sounds like this one would have had even more of a story, right? What is this game? What is happening? And that's what I wish that they could show us. And I get it, again, don't show it before it's ready. If you show it now and it's in a pathetic state, or a pathetic looking state, even if people think the game doesn't look that great, right? That brings morale down, or people have the wrong opinions now going forward. I get why you don't show a game before it's ready. Trust me, I do. But for this specific example of years of making this thing, of being kind of ambiguous as to what it even is. It's years after The Last was Part 2. You could have just had a simple multiplayer mode and put it into Part 2, but it's clear that it became some sort of live service thing, probably in the middle, right? I just need to see it. I need to, or maybe not see it. I need to know what it is. So you need to start throwing around hey, we got a Battle Royale mode, but it's not just Battle Royale. We're also going to have a story mode, because they've mentioned story. So, what is that story? Is it built into, the menu, right? You think of Factions 1 with the dots are people, right? Is it that? Or is it legitimate cutscenes? What is it? Can you explain it a little bit more? And, yeah, I mean, they asked for more time, and I guess that goes into now part 3 of this video. So when? When do we see it? And when does this thing come out? Well, I was hopeful that 2023 would be the time that you would do a beta or early access. Now, I guess that was considering that things were going well there. So now 2024, is that even wishful thinking? If it doesn't come out in 2024, it comes out in 2025, that is an enormous time. And then then you have to start throwing things around like, well, what was the game? And then what did it become, right? Like you look at Gotham Knights is always kind of an example I go to, not because I hate the game, but because it's kind of an easy example. You can see the live service stuff in that game, and you can see where they ripped that thing directly out of it, right? You can see that, and you can see like the ghosts of it still in the game later. So that's what I'm using it as an example for, just to kind of clarify. Do we get that for The Last of Us? Do we say, oh, this is a okay multiplayer, but oh man, like this element may have been really good, or this one's terrible. Was this a relic of the old game that they failed to pull out, or, all this stuff, like whatever it may be. There's also a question of, do you cancel it? Now, I think canceling a big game, even if it's multiplayer, canceling a big game from Naughty Dog would be massive, even just from how it looks to people. I think that's exactly why you don't do it. Even if the game is like arguably a train wreck, I feel like from your flagship studio, a studio that you respect so much, a studio you think that other people, and you probably rightfully think other people respect so much, to cancel it out into the public, not a good look. So you probably don't do it. You probably get the game out there. So what we are left with as consumers is knowing this thing is coming out, not having a clue of what it is, and then just having to pay, like, in a way, patiently wait. I've patiently waited for things. Wonder Woman is a game I'm patiently waiting for. Judas is a game. BioShock is a game. All in kind of different eras of their development, different stages. Last of Us is another one. And I think I'm maybe the least patient, the most impatient with The Last of Us, just because of what we just said. I would have taken a very simple team deathmatch multiplayer thing with The Last of Us Part 2. By the way, where's The Last of Us Part 2 director's cut? Where is it? It's probably coming eventually. I bet you, though, they planned on doing it with the multiplayer. And then because the multiplayer is taking forever, would you do The Last of Us Part 2 director's cut, and then 2 years later from now, would you do then the multiplayer? Is the multiplayer going to be ready by then? It's not a good look. It's not a good look. And also, but it comes from a place of like excitement. Like I wouldn't care this much about it if I was only bashing it, or if I wanted the thing to strictly fail, because that's the thing. I don't. I actually want this thing to be, even if it's a live service, which you know how I feel. I'm not a big fan at all of live service games. I want this thing to succeed. I want this thing to be awesome. I think it can, again, easily be awesome. I think if you just have a couple different multiplayer modes in this thing, whatever the story element is, you have the visual fidelity that Naughty Dog is good at, you have the combat of Last of Us Part 2, but it's in a 4v4 or 10v10, or it's a battle royale, so there's 50 people, there's infected in the match, so I've talked about that, pitched that idea before. Do an infected match like you have maps in The Last of Us Part 2. Have a map, have people fighting it out, but then also have clickers, have infected in the map where maybe they're chained up and you can release them, or maybe you can get killed by them, right? Like, these aren't that difficult, at least for me to think up. I understand it's probably harder to make, but I think it can be rather good. So it comes from that part. It comes from, I really want it. I don't know how you can mess it up. I don't know what's taking so long. I don't really even know what this game is. You have the Schreier report that kind of just casts a shadow over everything. A lot of questions. And then you don't know when the thing's coming, right? It could come next year, but like, was it close? Before they did that report or that update, like a month ago, how close was this game? Was it like 5 months close? Was it a year close? And they said, well, we still have significant issues, so we need to push it even further. Is this a 2024 game? Is it a 2025 game? We don't know. We don't know. I hope it's sooner rather than later, because I think the longer you push it, the longer it's kind of just like there. I think it continues to lose steam, and that's not what you want. I mean, at this point, Last of Us Part 3 might be closer to releasing than the multiplayer, which, yes, that's maybe an exaggeration, but every year that goes by, you get closer to that possibility. So it is possible. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.